Today's podcast is brought to you by StrongHeartAcademy.com, where no heart is no victory. We are also brought to you by BJJ To Go. If you want to build your game and learn jiu-jitsu, go to bjjtogo.com. Third thing we're brought to you by is Rat Bat. You got rats? Want to kill bats? Kill them with a rat bat. Fourth thing we're brought to you by is hot dog flavored water ingredients. If you want to add it to your smoothie, hot dog flavor ingredient. I just want to talk about games today, how I love games. And when you're a kid, you start off with simple games like tag before you even have the hand skills to write or count. On logic games, you play tag. And, you know, some people say the reason why little kids chase each other is they learn how to, like, get away from predators, and this is some sort of evolutionary thing that we've done. And then if you read about like dolls and kids doing imaginary games with figures, and then they're trying to figure out life, and this is them using play as a way to understand how to be a human. And you know, I think one of the problems is like adults many times stop playing games, and I think that's a mistake. You get older and you might watch things and you like consume media, but you're no longer playing the game, you know. And there's so many benefits to playing games. You know, when you get a little bit older, you start playing with cards, you know. You play memory games, right? You play Go Fish, and you remember who has... Okay, he had the puffer fish, he had the catfish, and then you see what you have, and you're teaching them resources and how to distribute resources and understanding how to strategy to win a game. And then you get into like Uno, and then you get into card games, and then there's all the other games of like Life, Monopoly, all the board games there is, but there's also games where there's like teamwork involved, where like you have to work with others to get to accomplish the goal of winning. And this is pretty much life, you know. I do, used to play chess a lot. There's certain strategies, people are always kind of comparing the two to jiu-jitsu. Maybe that's one of the reasons I like jiu-jitsu, but I don't like waiting for my turn. That's in jiu-jitsu. I don't have to wait for my turn. I just go to make my move. When I've started playing sports, those are just games too. Now people start you follow teams, and I never understood the people that like follow a sport that you never played. I guess I could, but I really pretty much follow basketball and jiu-jitsu. Because those are the games that I played, and I feel like you get a better understanding of the teamwork involved when you in wrestling. I'll even watch college wrestling now sometimes, just because I enjoyed it. And even gymnastics, I did gymnastics when I was young. I'll watch gymnastics too if it's on like ESPN or something. I'm somewhere where they have it on. I enjoy watching it because I understand what it takes to do what they do. And I've never. Doesn't mean that I'm ever was close to anything what those athletes can do, but the game itself is what I'm talking about. And enjoying and learning how to play the game and playing fair, playing within the rules, knowing where the rules are, going as close as you can to the edge of those rules, and like any game. And that's kind of life too. Companies do that all the time. That's how companies run. How close can we get to the regulations without breaking the regulations? And some of them will break the regulations and go, well, it's worth it. Like banks do it all the time. Like Wells Fargo, they made something like billions of dollars on opening these check accounts for people and charging them. And then when they got fined, it was like $400 million. Well, just simple, $1 billion, and let's say $10. I made $10. Oh, but I got to pay for $4. They just call it, it's an expense. It's not a fine, So that's part of the game, And then that's why they continue to break the rules, all the banks and stuff, because there's no consequences to a game. Certain games like basketball, you get 2 technicals, you're out of the game. So, you might know that I can get a technical, I can be loud, and you got to be careful with flagrant fouls. But back in the day, you could hit them pretty hard once, and that was like a warning. But you knew you could keep playing the game, and without getting kicked out of the game. And in mixed martial arts, it's that way too. You can get a warning. Oh, I hit him in the balls. It happens. People act like it doesn't happen, and it's not intentional. The eye gouges. That was happening. John Jones used to do it all the time. And oh yeah, it's why is he doing it so much? Maybe it's the way he throws his punches, but like, if you get caught more than once, it's part of the strategy at that point. So that it teaches you about rules and where you are willing to go with rules, and then you go farther along, and then it's like the dedication to the craft to beat the game. How much work are you willing to put in to be good at it, or to know your part in the game, and be satisfied as a team player. Like, hey, my goal is to, block in football. You're not going to get all the glory, but it is important for running backs to have good blockers, to create the holes, the gaps. And any running back would tell you, I'm not even a football fan, but any running back would tell you, like, yeah, I'm nothing without blockers, man. Like they make the way. You're going to get so many extra yards because of it. Maybe you can get a little bit here and there, but like they do the work. There's no glory in that. And there's something about, wanting to win a game, doing your part, and willing to not have any glory at all, but knowing that you were part of the process of it. And that's like a super level of teamwork that, when we get older, we start missing out on those things, I think. I highly recommend people to find games to play. Sometimes I think it's, people start playing bar games because it's just easier, and but there's something to those too. Playing pool, darts. There's camaraderie involved. There's hand-eye coordination involved. But really more competitive sports I would recommend. Something that you use your body, I definitely recommend. Any games are good. Many people play video games, and I think there's benefits to video games too. People, they are definitely escapism, but there's heroics. The hero's journey is played in a video game. So, when you're a little kid, I would say especially little boys, and you're playing cops and robbers or whatever it is, you always want to be the hero of the game. And there's something to that. And when you're playing video games, you're the protagonist. You're the hero generally playing the game. And even if it's sports games, you're trying to be the guy winning the game. You're the first person perspective is happening. So psychologically, I think that there are benefits to that. Now, do I think you should be doing that, 8 hours a day? Probably not. There's probably other things you do with your life, but there should be games in your life that you should play. And I think getting older and stop playing games is a mistake. And I think tons of people do that. They just kind of fade away. Maybe I can't physically do the things I used to be able to do, but you should pick up other games. They should always, and I think a lot of times you see professional athletes, they play golf. Why? Because you can physically do that. Not that it's not, walking a lot, but most people you can ride in golf carts, and you can have a caddy carry your clubs. You don't even need to carry your clubs. So, is there a swing? Yes. Is that the end of the world? Is that like extremely physically challenging? I mean, maybe the mobility of a swing. But, you see basketball players, hockey players, football players, all the big sports. they all go to hockey when they retire because they still want to play games. You still got to play games, and I feel like that's so many metaphors for life and so many benefits. The continuation of playing games, and like, you'll hear people say, "Oh, well, athletes are just playing a game. They should be paid so much money." Well, they generate a lot of money, so like, who should get that money? People go because of the particular players, not always for the game. So they should be paid accordingly, and like, oh, doctors should be paid more. Yeah, I mean, they're paid well too. It's not like they're not paid. But I don't think, if you're producing, you should be paid for it. But that's part of the game as well. Playing the game in your office, how do we get paid more? It's not always people that produce more get paid more. I mean, that's part of it for sure. But like, there's a game to play. I have a lot of friends that, I haven't worked in any corporations. I don't remember the last time. But they'll always tell me that to get raises, you got to move corporation. You move to the next corporation. You show you what you've done the previous corporation, and then that's where you can get big raises that way. $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 raises, which is a lot, especially in tech. If you move and you go, oh, this is what I did my last company, this is what I am capable of, these are my certifications I got, and moving will always get you faster raises, and that's part of the current corporate game that people play. People don't stay with businesses for like 20 years and retire anymore. Rarely. You want to play the game, you got to move, unfortunately, unless you enjoy that, starting over and replaying the game, learning the rules of the game at work. And not that I would say mind games are fun or anything like that, but like, making sure that people know that you've done your work is on time, you are early, they know what you produce, everything is measurable, and you can show them that's part of the game, and I think even playing games with my kids, it's fun. I get to teach them things while we play games. Even Nerf, we were shooting each other with Nerf guns last week, and it was a blast for me. And I'm like, oh, I'm old, I'm running around, But I had a blast. It reminded me when I was being a little kid, chasing each other, shooting each other, It was fun. It's fun. And, games should be fun. And if you can learn from them at the same time, why not double up? I say, jiu-jitsu, I think one of the things I gravitated to it so fast was kind of like when I started wrestling. So I played with team sports and went to individual sports. And it was fun. Now I didn't have to rely on anyone. I used to play point guard a lot when I played basketball, but you could have someone that just takes the ball and they're not a team player. They don't pass the ball. They get the ball, they shoot it, terrible shots. If you're open, you should shoot. That's how basketball works. But, you get guys that don't want to run back, they don't want to do the work. And that's like part of the team. And I was like, always like, man, I wish there were 5 of me, even though my skill level might not always be the best, but I was always like willing to hustle, always box out, always play defense. I'm first to run back, I'll die on the floor. I always wanted that, as teammates, and people willing to do the assignments that they have to do. So when I got to like, when you lost also in team sports, there's like the pain of loss is spread around a little bit. And, baseball, you're like, oh, you didn't catch that pop fly. We would have had that out. We would have won, close it out, but he dropped it. Oh, man, like he walked a few people. He shouldn't have walked. The pitcher, or we weren't hitting tonight, like there could be multiple reasons, and you can kind of spread it around. But when you play solo sports, it's all you. You got to feel all the pain of losing. And the good side of that is you get to feel all the joy of winning too. And if you can, there's a two-sided street kind of thing. And but it's you got to take a lot of responsibility when you play those sports, because now it's like, okay, I had to do the work. to be good at this thing, this game. And then jiu-jitsu is a funny thing because tournaments are even can be more different than in your academy when you train in an academy. And the MMA is a whole other set of rules, and it's always rule sets. And if you think about combat sports, it's always rule sets that set what we can and cannot do. Judo used to do what they used to call newaza, which is a lot more grappling on the ground. And when they got in the Olympics, they eliminated a lot of that stuff. And then they started eliminating more things like have to stand up straight, you can't bend over. Then later on, they started removing certain throws, and then they said you couldn't even touch the legs anymore, and then you go, oh, well, judo guy beat up whatever. Like, well, the rule set, a judo guy will beat someone with a kimono on if we're doing throws. There's high probability of that. Oh, we take the kimono off. Oh, and then it's like a wrestler versus a judo guy. That's a quicker, more even balance. And I can bend over like a wrestler. I say the wrestler wins because the judo guy doesn't have sprawls. They don't know how to sprawl. They don't know how to crossface. They don't have the wrestling defense for takedowns. But now you allow both throws, upper body, lower body throws. You're going to have way more advantage for a wrestler. And, so those are just rule sets and part of playing games that change. And I love jiu-jitsu because, when I first started, there was less and less rules, and now there's more and more and more rules. And I totally understand it's all mainly geared for safety. But, it gave you so many options to win. Submissions, win by submission or points, but there's so many submission options. And then everyone has defense. And a submission is like, it's an instant win. And there's few sports where, like, you do this one thing and then the game is over, no matter what time is left. A lot of the team sports are like, it's a time limit thing. And then much of that went to money because of the commercials and stuff like that. So it has an X amount of time. But in wrestling, boxing, all the combat sports, you can achieve a certain almost perfection of the game, and it's over. The game is over. And even when you're losing really bad, especially in jiu-jitsu, you still have this, this chance of winning before the time runs out if you get a submission. And then if you do no limits, no time limits, then it becomes a game of endurance. Who can last longer before their body gives out? And I just, those are all rule sets within jiu-jitsu, different games. And then you get into leg locks, what is allowed and what is not allowed. Then we turn into, a lot of leg entanglements and kind of stuck in a position. I think you're seeing a little bit more movement now. The guys are more rounded and they can defend a little bit better. But once you're stuck inside, we're stuck in a leg lock game. It's just two people with their legs in knots. And I have nothing wrong with that, but the rule set dictates how the game is going to be played. And then you have gi versus no gi comparisons, and they're similar but different, and that changes the rules. And I find it really, really fun to play the game. And I was talking to someone actually today about it, and in jiu-jitsu you can force someone physically if you're physically can overpower people with technique too. But it's always in athletics, speed, things like that. It's part of the game. You can't not do that. But whenever you can trick someone to sweep them, trick someone to take them down, like foot sweeps, where like you get them stepping and just like tap their foot. When you can do things with the minimum amount of effort and win the game, it's like chess when you have like a 5-move, 6-move win, checkmate, game over, checkmate. But we can both go at the same time. That's the difference between chess for me. People always say it's like the physical thing, but that's not as much as we are both going. I don't have to wait for you to make your move before I make my move. And jiu-jitsu is so cool like that, where we're both trying to impose our wills, but you can impose your will with pure technique and not work as hard as the other guy. And whenever you do it, it feels like magic. It literally does feel like magic. And I was talking about that today with someone, and like the feeling of like sweeping, submitting, or taking someone's back, and they're like, what the they barely understood what just happened. And you just use their weight against them. You use their momentum against them. You bait them into doing something, trying to take something, and then you counter it with something else. Anyone that's done jiu-jitsu long enough knows what I'm talking about. But it's one of the most fun part of the games for me. And then there's the mentorship of jiu-jitsu too. I'm a professor, but we have purple belts, brown belts, even blue belts that help white belts try to get to blue belts, and purple belts trying to help blue belts, and so on all down the line. You just go down the line and you're helping the next person down and getting into the next level. I find that is part of the game. Even if you're not really a coach, you're just a teammate, and you're trying to help your friend out get better. Then you learn the camaraderie of jiu-jitsu that way, and that is the teamwork of jiu-jitsu. Even though it's an individual sport, nobody can get good at jiu-jitsu without a partner. So even if most of the school isn't competing, you got 10% competing. Those 10% competing, or 5%, need the other 95% as bodies to help them out, work takedowns with them, be dummies, and then cheering them on when they compete. That's a huge thing. And I'll tell guys in our school all the time, when I'm a huge Suns fan, but I never say we did this. No, the Suns did this. I didn't do anything. So I always tell people, you should go to your team when there's competitions and you have people in your school competing. You should go and support them because you are part of the team. When you watch the Cardinals play, you were never part of any of their practices. You never even fetched them water. You paid them maybe money, I guess, but that's not really part of the team. When you're in jiu-jitsu academy, you are part of your team, and when your team does well, you should be proud that you probably were part of that. Even in a small part, you were part of sharpening the competitor's axe and to go out there and swing. So that was it today. Just want to talk about games and how much I love them, and how I recommend if you're getting older and you starting to notice that you're not playing games anymore, that you should find a game that you like and play it, and not just digital. I would recommend physical things to keep you active. Because you get older, it's not just your mind can get weaker, your body definitely gets weaker as well. You want to keep both sharp, and I think games do that, and keep the interaction also, so you don't start getting. You can get older, and you can also isolate yourself. You get less friends. People move away. You don't try to get new friends, and games help with that. Jiu-jitsu definitely helps with that. You can always get new friends in jiu-jitsu because there's always new people coming in, meeting new people, and hanging out with them. And games can do that for you. So I get immense happiness in games. Hope you guys do too, and maybe you just don't think of it in these terms, and hopefully I got you thinking about maybe trying to start something new. And if you want to think about jiu-jitsu, strongheartacademy.com. Check us out. We do a free trial. Peace.
Let me talk for just a second, help me feel that sense of rhythm. Find the meanings in our bearings and discover this position as a stage along the way. Another rung to the ladder, either stalling or you're climbing, and I'd rather beat the ladder. Instead of getting fatter, let the footsteps resume naturally.